Hey everyone, thank you very much for clicking on this video. Today, I'm going to help you out with beating the time trial for the Crota Nightmare Hunt on Master difficulty. Part of completing the Harbinger title requires that you beat all 8 Nightmare Hunt time trials on Master to unlock the associated emblem. And so far, it seems like the Nightmare Hunt Despair is going to be the most challenging one to beat, because unlike the other bosses, you can't use your weapons to defeat Crota. Instead, you have to do it the old-fashioned way and use the sword. The time to beat for this specific mission is 15 minutes, with the Fanatic and Fogoth Nightmare Hunts demanding a clear within 10 minutes. And these missions are pretty short, so you really have to plan around saving as much time for the boss as possible, especially for Crota, because to defeat him it takes roughly the same amount of time as it does to even get to him. With time trials, it's all about speed, so pay attention to the footage as I'm talking, because you'll notice occasionally we're skipping some of the champions. You aren't required to defeat a certain amount of champions to qualify for the time trial triumph, so skipping them when you can is a huge time saver. There are certain areas where you simply just cannot skip past them, so we're going to need to plan accordingly, which means bringing the right mods. For this week, there are Barrier Knights and Unstoppable Ogres, and the game is going to mix these champions up every time you run. Sometimes you'll get mostly Barriers, other times you'll get mostly Unstoppables, but more often than not, you'll have a nice mix of them. Since the Ogres can be stunned by one person, you should only need one player using an Unstoppable hand cannon, and the other two can run the anti-barrier mods. One of the easiest ways to clear high-end content like the Master Nightmare Hunts when you're this underleveled is using 2 Izanagi's Burden Snipers paired with Divinity. You've probably seen this setup used by a handful of others at this point, and if you're looking to speedrun Nightfall on Master or trying to get the time trial of Nightmare Hunts, at least right now it seems like this is going to be the most efficient setup to be able to do that. When the player with Divinity holds the beam on a target, it creates a giant crit spot. This makes using Izanagi and its honed edge shot so much easier, because instead of trying to hit a tiny little crit spot, you've now got a gigantic area to shoot and still get that precision damage. It's highly recommended that you have the catalyst for Izanagi's Burden, which comes from a completion of the Heroic Menagerie, which is super easy now, so if you got your chalice fully upgraded, go and get that ASAP. If you don't have access to Divinity, you could simply run a 3rd Izanagi's Burden, although that's going to require even more coordination. The 2 shield types within this mission are Arc and Solar, so have a nice mix of those elements between your energy and heavy weapons to take care of all the enemies in the final room. As for recommended mods, one player should at least consider running the Finisher mod that spawns special ammo for the entire fire team. It does cost 1/3 of your super if you're not using the artifact mod that refunds super energy, but with everyone in the team depending on that special ammo so much, it can be a huge lifesaver. It can also be extremely beneficial to run the Dreambane mods that reduce incoming damage from Nightmare bosses, as well as the Nightmare Hunt specific mod called Nightmare Breaker that makes it easier to break the enemy's shields created by the boss. If you don't have the highest version of this mod yet, I would highly recommend getting the enhanced version and then the supreme version by farming Legend Nightmare Hunts. And finally, for subclasses and team composition, you're going to want to roll with 2 top tree Night Stalker Hunters using Orpheus Rigs, and 1 Well of Radiance Warlock, preferably using Phoenix Protocol. As players level up more and this mission rotates back around, the subclass setup will certainly become more flexible, but at least right now we found that 2 Hunters is really crucial for the final boss fight, because with only 1 Hunter, the other supers were not able to generate enough orbs. It's admittedly kind of difficult to give tips for the encounters before the boss, since the configuration of champions is going to be different for your run. The best advice I could give is don't be afraid to burn supers or put down a well to help you be aggressive and make a push forward. The only thing worse than wiping is wasting time stuck in the same spot, not being able to move. If the enemies keep dipping in and out of cover and you can't get a shot off, try and reposition and attack from a different angle. There's a lot of side passages and a lot of cover for you in this mission, so take advantage of it. Also, be sure to communicate with your teammate that is using Divinity so they don't burn through their ammo if you're not ready with your honed edge shot. And also be sure to take advantage of the Barrier and Unstoppable mods. They are a huge part of these higher level activities, and if you need to, you can just keep stunning the Unstoppable Ogre over and over and buy your team some time. Or you can break the barrier shield in order to prevent them from shooting. You have a lot of tools at your disposal in order to clear these things efficiently. Otherwise, just try and stick together and clear enemies as a team, Just so you can see the rest of the run, I'm going to leave this footage in and I'll catch up with you guys when we get to the boss. Now that we're at the final boss, which you should aim to get to by at least like half your total allotted time, so around like 7.5 minutes, our team found it safest to set up camp over on the raised area on the right side of the room here. I recommend putting the well somewhere in this area, somewhere nearby this ledge, but it doesn't have to be directly on it. From here, you should always have a hunter tethering right in the middle when all the shielded acolytes spawn. Not having a tether to quickly take down these smaller enemies will make this encounter so much more difficult than it needs to be. I ran the Love and Death solar grenade launcher from the moon, and it made it really easy to rip the shields off the acolytes once they were tethered. The player with Divinity can then help you take down both sword bearers, allowing for 2 players to attack Crota. Because Crota can one-shot you in a Well of Radiance, in a Ward of Dawn, whatever, it doesn't matter, he can always one-shot you. The easiest way to bring him down is by having one of the hunters go invisible, pick up a sword, while you have another player distracting the boss, and then immediately use the heavy slam attack and down Crota before he even knows you're there. Then the second person can join you with their sword once he's already vulnerable. Sometimes you can get lucky and he may not swing first, but most of the time Crota's going to beat you to the punch if you don't get that first slam in when you're invisible. Once he stands back up, the entire sequence of events is just going to repeat. Keep an eye out for where the sword bearers spawn because sometimes they may pop up right where I originally said to place the well. In this case, you might need to move back a bit and reposition your well if this happens. Basically, you just want to use the back right corner of this room to your advantage, and you don't want to stray too far from this area, otherwise Crota is going to start wandering. Also, sitting too close to the ledge can actually cause Crota to do a leap with his sword, and sometimes end up killing you from there, so make sure to be aware of where he is and not get too close to him. You want to try and lure the sword bearers close to where you're camping if possible, to allow the hunter going invis as much time as they need to get to Crota before reappearing. If anyone goes down near Crota or far away from you, don't risk your life trying to revive them. It's going to cause many more deaths and Crota's just going to start freaking out and it's going to be a bad time. If you can control the acolytes with the tether and kill them quickly, it's going to make taking down the sword bearers a lot easier, and then using that invisibility to initiate the damage phase should be all you need to beat this. You just want to repeat this strategy over and over until he's dead. We cut it pretty close on this run, and there's a good chance if you're around 965 like we were, it's going to be close for you as well. But I believe in you, and I hope this strategy works out and gets you that flawless. If it does, please let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, that's all I've got for this one. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.